Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ultra in Conversation. And today, I'm conversing with the vivacious Jen from Real Housewives Recaps. Hello, Jen, and a warm welcome to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Not at all. Great to have you in this episode today. Now, for any sugars listening, we have activated the Drunken Goose translator. So your one hive brain cell can understand what's being said, but more about that later. We're going to learn first a bit more about Jen and her work. Now, Jen, I've always been intrigued by this. Real Housewives Recaps. Enlighten me.
Yeah, so I started the channel in 2020 and it was something I was into at the time. Honestly, I'm fascinated by narcissists, hence me wanting to talk to you. So,
Okay, but with,
um,
with Real Housewives, is this because you were enjoying the television shows of that name or?
exactly. So with and that's why I was teasing about the narcissism. I think it runs rampant on that show, and so
Sure.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
picked it up and recapped it and enjoyed it very much, and I kind of burnt out with that, and I started I really got into the Johnny Depp Amber Heard of it all, and I started recapping the case and talking about the trial and specifically Amber Heard and the narcissism, and then of course I found Meghan Markle very similar. So when
Yeah,
that happened, I yeah, that's how I made the transition. So
I see. Because
yes,
obviously in your bio, you talk about you recap everything and you talk about wanting to discuss the royal family and that you
yes.
have a go at Harry and this one's wife occasionally. But latterly, many of your videos are about Harry and this one's wife. So what is it about the gruesome twosome that's caused you to focus on them so much?
Well, what happened is I became interested after the interview in South Africa. Who could forget that, right? October 2019. And
Hmm.
I just found it so fascinating that these two entitled, well, excuse me, but pricks,
Hmm.
go to South Africa where people are really, truly struggling and things are going on and they can only talk about themselves. So I just was fascinated and thus started my rabbit hole. I started falling down and talking about it and like, is this real? Could this really am I understanding this correctly? And I've just remained fascinated ever since. I've always admired and respected and had a great just love for Her Majesty the late Queen. And so I believe I had done something just talking about my admiration for her before that. And then
Hmm.
when seeing all this and then seeing the South Africa happen, I was just in shock about it. I really was. And so it inspired me to start talking about it and I got some traction and people were equally frustrated, I believe, and it's led from that.
I understand. It's always interesting
Yeah.
to uh, being British, and obviously it's the British royal family to understand the perspective of you traitorous colonists that kicked us out all those years ago. And in particular, naturally, you may well have heard of Prince Harry beforehand, and of course you knew about Queen Elizabeth
Yes.
II. And it's not as if necessarily you would feel any loyalty towards this one's wife as being an American, because she was virtually unheard of,
Uh-huh.
despite her attempts to tell the world that she was vastly popular as a consequence of Suits.
Of
That
course.
wasn't the case. So it's very interesting to me to, when I speak to YouTubers who are from the good old United States, to understand what is it about them that proves so interesting to you, because in a sense the royal family is something that you guys rejected
Uh-huh.
250 years ago or thereabouts. So as you know, I spoke to the Sidley twins, and part of
Uh-huh.
their motivation was the fact that they saw it as elder abuse and they were offended by that.
Sure.
So with you, it was more a case of, I really can't believe what I'm witnessing here. Who on earth behaves like that? Would that be fair?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. You've nailed it. It's my fascination with the narcissism. It's the I'm just completely intrigued with the complex. I mean, I'm talking to you about it. The complex psychology that it's it's wild to see. And again, I go back to Amber Heard. I mean, it really started with that and seeing somebody essentially lying to all of us on things that are easily provable and seeing that with Harry and Meghan. has just
Yeah.
kept me completely fascinated.
Have you always appreciated that it's narcissism that drives this one's wife's behavior, or did you think it was something else to begin with?
I think so. I've just always had, again, I go back to I've had a fascination with it. I've always said I think I might be the opposite. I take more of a modest view of my own importance, and I have a more realistic, I think, assessment of abilities. And then
Hmm.
I see somebody like that, and it's like I'm so surprised. I just can't stop talking about it. So,
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
it's certainly the case. I regularly see this and
mhm.
comment about it in some of my videos. The fact that there are those that they'll go, but why does she do that? Isn't she
Yeah,
ashamed?
absolutely.
Is she not upset that she's fallen out with her family? And of
Hmm.
course, if you understand narcissism and apply that to her behaviors, you get all of the answers. So one can understand. That's why I talk about her so much,
Hmm.
because as you know, I ridicule her as being rather beige and dull. But so many people are fascinated by her behaviors that I have had so many people come to me and they say, I watched your videos about this one's wife because basically I don't like her, and your well-spoken tones are rather entertaining, HG, when you give her a bit of a verbal slapping and explain her narcissism. But then I realized that the behaviors you were talking about, my husband is like this, and I never realized I was dealing with a narcissist, and it leads them on to other aspects of my work. So
Yeah.
that's part of, yeah. So it's rather rewarding when people find that out. But also, there is a degree of frustration when I repeatedly see people go, but why does she do this? And I think, well, because
Oh,
she's a
I'm sure.
narcissist. Watch this
Uh-huh.
video. And there's the explanation. Do you feel any sense of injustice, Jen, about the way that they behave? Does that irk you? You evidently strike me as someone who's got a sense of fair play. Does
It
that get under your skin?
it does. It absolutely does. And I have trouble hiding the emotion. So often that's the comment I get is, "Oh, Jen, I can tell how frustrated or outraged you are." And I know it's like drinking poison and expecting it to hurt somebody else. It doesn't work like that. But
Yeah.
but for me, it's just it's my only coping skill is to get on the mic and be like, "What the blank is going on?"
Hmm.
So that's what I do.
So do it provide you with a degree of catharsis then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, absolutely. It absolutely does. Yeah, I think that's what I found my people in this group and being able to talk about these things and
Yeah.
again and again, it's not just how horrible they are, but again, talking about talking about Her Majesty the late Queen, and I've always had a deep admiration for Catherine, Princess of Wales, and of course Princess
Hmm.
Anne. The royal ladies, they're wonderful, right? So I talk about that stuff a lot, and then
Yeah.
I just and people don't always love it, but I can't help it. I have to talk about the differences between Catherine and Megan, and I think the low hanging fruit for people is to say don't put women against women. It's different. It's completely different. I think just noticing the personality types, and it just keeps me completely riveted.
Well, that's an intellectually lazy response to say don't pit women against women,
I
because it
think so
isn't about
too.
woman against woman. Yes,
No,
they're both women, although
exactly.
some people do cast doubt upon this one's wife in that regard.
That's
But
right.
we don't need to talk about that. It's about narcissists against empath
Yeah.
and the behaviors. Have you found, given your immersion into the world of this one's wife and also Amber Heard, has
Yes.
it enabled you to look at other behaviors of famous and infamous people and go, ah ha ha, I get it now. I see a narcissist at work.
I think so. I find it again completely interesting. Have talked a little bit about Jada Pinkett Smith, and my
Yeah.
belief that she is a full-on raging narcissist,
Oh
and
yes.
so yes, it definitely has. I've just again I tend to circle back to those two, especially Megan and Amber. I find some weird just the similarities. It's just interesting to me.
There are similarities.
Hmm.
One obviously being more publicly aggressive than the other, and of
Yeah.
course, one only one of them, as we know, her dog stood on a bee. That's
That's right. Well,
yeah,
think about the way they're polarizing. And I think that is completely fascinating to me, the way that they've dragged down their partners. And again, I love Johnny Depp. It's not disrespectful to him, but the way they've tried to drag down their partners can't say that I love Harry, but
No,
it's just
but
it's
that's what narcissists do. Not
uh-huh.
narcissists, particularly of that caliber,
Hmm.
they come in and they're parasitic and
Right.
drain their intimate partner primary source, using my parlance, as that's the person that the narcissist latches onto because they're the easiest to control. They're like a supermarket.
Hmm.
So rather than you go around 30 different independent stores for your shopping, you will probably go to one large supermarket for the majority of your purchases. So the narcissist is similar. In order to make life easier for the narcissist identifies, invariably subconsciously, one person who then is the easiest one to control, who also provides lots of fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. And in doing that, and ensnaring that person, they become isolated from their support groups, lose friends, lose family. They're stripped of their self-esteem, their self-confidence becomes dented. They may have problems with regard to work because they're too
Hmm.
busy focused on placating the narcissist rather than doing what they ought to do. Their finances can become drained, and they often become the shell of what they once were as a consequence of the involvement of the narcissist. So, as you've seen, although you don't have much love and affection for Harry, he's
Hmm.
clearly been impacted on. You compare how he was
Yeah,
pre the spider coming along and look at him now,
that's
and
right.
ditto what the impact it had on Johnny Depp, and look at how Johnny Depp has thrived again since he's
Hmm.
been away from Amber Heard. Now, Jen, with the topics that you talk about
Hmm.
in relation to Harry and this one's wife, what strand of topic do you find generates the most interest when you're making a video? Which ones suddenly get a lot of interest, get a lot of commentary?
I find that the cringe related, the
Okay.
cringe related topics that I have it was, gosh, over 2 hours video where I go over the best of the worst cringe moments. And I find that that's one of my favorites I talked about recently. I had to revisit it is like when they went to the Royal Albert Hall, it was the Mountbatten
Yes.
Music Festival. And they truly believed that the applause was for them, which
Yeah,
would make the entire crowd psychic, knowing that they were going to walk in late, right? And cheer for them. It
indeed.
just you can't make sense of that. So I
No.
love to go back and watch it.
So 2 hours worth of cringe. Do you have to get a podiatrist to straighten your toes after that?
That's yes, you do. You might need a shot of something strong when you're watching that one.
I could well imagine. So cringe works. I find that anything that relates to the allegations about being a yacht girl,
Okay.
yeah, anything about the phantom pregnancies,
Yeah.
and anything basically that points to it's all going horribly wrong for them.
Yes.
There's a lot of people are interested in that, which points again to I think there's some aspect that there's with some people that view there's almost a slightly ghoulish element to it. You know, it's like watching a car driving past a car wreck, a car crash.
Yeah.
People want to see the gore. Yeah, they can't help but want to watch it. And I think for the majority of people, though, it is about this sense of justice that they've seen almost. You were given all of these things. You were given the spectacular wedding. You were welcomed into the United Kingdom. You were welcomed into the United States. You secured these big deals, and look how you've behaved. And
Exactly.
I think people have this sense of wanting to see her really crash and burn, and Harry
Yeah.
also, because they feel that they deserve it. Would you
Absolutely.
echo that view?
I absolutely would. You're exactly nailing, I think, how I feel and how most of us feel. Yeah, I think
Mm.
so too. And it's fascinating to watch because they absolutely are in more than a tailspin at this point, and I'd say well deserved. They brought it upon themselves. They have no one to blame but themselves, even though they will blame everybody else.
That's absolutely right. Now, I understand from what you've told me that a sugar once described you as an inebriated Antidean, or more commonly, a drunken goose. Now,
Yes.
so you've obviously had some involvement, Jen, with sugars, but have
Oh.
you had a lot of interaction with them, or not so much?
So I have. I actually took a cue from you. I think you do a great job with your sugar roast videos.
Yeah.
And so I've taken to doing things like that, talking about why the comments make no sense and how
Hmm.
ridiculous they are and that sort of thing. And so Yeah, those are some of my favorite to do. And so, yeah, it's not that I honestly don't answer back in the comments. Usually I just block and hide and move on, but I do like to respond in the videos. And it strikes me very funny because so many reasons, but I always tease that I lose IQ points watching or responding to that. But
Mm.
watching them do things like spell her name wrong or throw out race cards where they have no place whatsoever,
Yeah.
they
Do you remember when soundboards used to be popular? So you might get one for Full Metal Jacket, and you could go and
yes.
you could click on, you go, "What's your name, scumbag?" and all of those different things, and keep pressing them. I think the Sugars have one which is, "You don't know her, and
That's right.
you're a racist, and
Yes.
leave her alone, and I've misspelt her name, and
Yes.
you're jealous of her," and it's like,
That's
you actually
right.
mean envious, but never mind.
Envious.
And it's astonishing, isn't it, that they just trot out the same description. Have you, as you may know, I've spoken to the Duchess of Narcissus recently.
Yes.
She talked about how she had been singled out and
Oh.
identified for some real online sugar hatred that had been poured in her
Yes.
direction. Have you felt that they've come after you, or is it just more intermittent interactions that you've had?
Yes, so I have a funny story about that.
Hmm?
Boozy decided to single me out, and of all the videos I've made and all the things I've made fun of them for, I often I just put on a faux Megan voice because to me, even in her own head, she's very breathy, like, look at me, like self-importance.
Yeah.
Um, but Boozy targeted me because I had this idea when she released her jam. I was like, I try to do I think I have this opportunity to do good things. So I try to do money for charities and things like I try to raise money and if I can donate to a good cause, I will. And so I had this idea, let's support High Grove because that money does go to charity and let's buy some jam and react. And so I had my husband pose with jam in the way that what was that Abigail posed with the
Yes.
Megan's jam and ooh, that ticked off the Sugars real bad, and they came after. They tried to dox us
Oh,
and
really?
find us. Yeah, because I had to laugh. I've never made a secret. I'm in Florida. That's not a big deal. And they were trying to find me in Florida and stuff. But it's all to do with because of all the things I've said, whether deserved or not. I think so. But to come after me because I decided to give money to charity
Yeah.
it strikes me very funny. Same with it's not just me, my whole group, the Drunkies. We raised quite a bit of money for St. Jude in honor of Catherine, Princess of Wales, because of her commitment to childhood causes, and it was just such a wonderful thing. And immediately, I got hate for it from them. Everybody was wonderful, but they were horrible in saying things like Jen probably kept the money and stuff, even though I fully have receipts that it was every penny was donated and we even gave our own money toward it, so it's fine. But do you see what I mean? It's when I tend to do, so-called good, they
That
come
really
after me
gets. Well, it's
harder.
interesting that you highlight that, Jen, because I think that and another fact, which I'll come to in a moment,
Hmm.
really does demonstrate the vitriol and the
Yes.
rotten nature of these dunderheads. That they come after you for acts of charity, which
Yes,
they don't see just highlights how unpleasant they are. And the
exactly.
other factor is this: they will regularly accuse people of doing the very thing that they are doing themselves. So
Yes.
they will accuse you of being racist and they engage in
Mhm.
racist behavior themselves. They'll accuse you of being a hater and then they go and engage in hateful behavior themselves. And they do
Yes.
it all, they'll do it within the same sentence. And not only is that demonstrative of the fact that they are rampant hypocrites, it also just demonstrates that they really are epsilon semi-morons that are just chatting out this repeated mantra that they've picked up, like the soundboard. They really are odious individuals. I don't get too many. Um, that's why there's always a bit of a gap between my episodes of Let's All Laugh at the Sugars, even though I think we're up to episode 27 at the moment. But when they do come, they're no
Yes.
different from the ones that are found elsewhere. But I think a lot of it is that because I use multisyllabic words, they really struggle to understand what I'm saying. So
Yes.
consequently, they largely leave me alone because I think I must sort of give them a headache and their little brains overheat and they can't cope. Now, you're obviously a fan of the royal family, but
Yeah.
who's your favorite member? If you had to make a selection, who's your favorite of the royal family, Jen, and why?
Oh, HG, that's hard. That's
Well,
mean.
I'm going to insist that you choose. I'm going to be horrible and make you choose.
Oh, I thought we were friends. I'm going to say Catherine, Princess of Wales, is my favorite.
Why
I
is
just
that?
love. Oh, so many reasons. I just everything. Everything I know about her, I love. I was already a fan, but then diving into this Meghan stuff, I've done so much more. I've just made myself more aware of everything she's done. I find her down to earth and relatable, which is wild to say about future queen. You wouldn't normally say something like that, but I do, and I have a child and understand the difficulty of raising my child is small, and she has 3 small children and prioritizes that as well as her role within the royal family. I think she is a great support system for William. I personally love, again, I tend to like charitable causes, and I love that particularly she's into the early childhood development. I find that so fascinating. She started, of course, the Royal Foundation in 2021, and just the fact that she can raise awareness for the importance of the childhood development, it just makes me love. See, even talking about her, I have chills. I just love her so much. I just, it's my dream to meet her one day, and I always tease I want to have tea with her and talk shit about Meghan. So
I'm sure that'd be a richly rewarding experience if that were to happen.
yes.
She smells really good.
Oh, does she now? I think
Always
so.
very clean smelling.
I have gosh, I sound like such a stalker. I have researched that and recently purchased Joe Malone because I believe that is one of the scents that she wears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite popular, Joe Malone. And,
Yes.
Yeah, she does. It's noticeable it's a simple but clean smell that's associated with her. I suppose sort of purity of scent as
Uh-huh.
somehow sort of seeps through. Certainly doesn't smell of stale hairspray and tobacco and stale alcohol like a certain other person. Now, having spoken in such positive and fragrant terms about Catherine, Princess of Wales,
Yes.
what annoys you most about this one's wife?
Oh my goodness. Um, can I ask you though, who is your favorite? Do you mind?
Who is my favourite royal?
Yeah, of the
I
royal
think at the
family.
moment,
Yeah.
Loose Cannon Louis. The boy shows potential.
Okay.
So I find
I
him
mean, he's got
entertaining.
dance moves, I gotta say.
He certainly has. With a bit of instruction, get those old snake hips going, and the boy's got a little bit of spunk about him, as we Brits would say.
That's
So
right.
I like him. I think in terms of the adults, I would agree with you that it's Catherine. She is a lovely individual. She isn't all sweetness and light.
Mhm.
She's got quite a devilish side to her, but not in a nasty way. And she has put up with a lot of shit and
Yes.
has got on with it. And I don't mean just recently with all of the nonsense about, oh, she's dead and, she was
Mhm.
buried under the flagstones, or she's
Yes.
run away because William was slipping a cripple to Rose Hanbury and so forth.
Right.
But
That is a wonderful way to say that.
well, indeed. And
Uh-huh.
when she was younger, she was given a hard time by the media in the United
Uh-huh.
Kingdom, the whole Waity Katie stuff.
Yeah.
There was the long lens pictures of her topless and so
Mm.
forth. So, I mean, it's not like living in a war zone. So there's a sense of perspective about all of this. But she's had her scrutiny also. She
Sure.
came through it with flying colours. She got on with it. She didn't go to the media and start whinging and crying like someone else that we know. So
Exactly.
she's shown fortitude. Close behind those, Princess Anne, complete truth.
Oh, yes.
She's got what we say. She's got bottom to her, and she puts a bit of stick about. So, yeah, it'd be those two. So, afternoon tea with Catherine and Anne would be a riot and a hoot, and it would soon segue into drinks on the balcony and a right old royal knees up. So that's all good news there. Now, you neatly deflected to buy yourself a bit of thinking time, but I'm going to bring you back to what annoys you most about this one's wife.
All right, fair enough. How long do you have? I could talk for 4 hours, but off the
Well,
top
that
of
would
my
be
head,
lovely, but if you could
yeah.
condense it into a couple of minutes, that would be preferable.
All right, you're making me do all these tough things today, HG. I would.
You've got to earn your corn, Jen. Come on now.
Okay, fair enough. It's honestly, it's so much about her. I would say it's more than the attention-seeking behavior. It's the need for constant admiration, believing that she's superior and expects everyone to recognize her as such.
Yeah.
Her inflated self-importance. I think she takes advantage of others to achieve what
Mm,
she sets out, her plans.
mm.
Her lack of empathy toward everyone, I find her very, I mean, this is not groundbreaking, but I find her very manipulative and deceptive.
Mhm.
I am fascinated, as I mentioned, again, I tie everything back to Amber Heard and how they can lie like that and not, I mean, it can be about a small thing. Like we married 3 days before when clearly they did not marry 3 days before. Why? I still haven't figured that one out. There's usually I can find,
Well,
even
what
if it
it's
doesn't,
about,
oh God.
it, why that happens is that she operates in her own reality. Now,
Hmm.
sometimes that reality segues with the reality that you understand to be
Hmm.
reality. So, for instance, if you had the misfortune of spending some time with her and you pointed and said, "What's that over there? It's a tall thing. It's sort of grey brown and has green things on it." She would go, "That's a tree." And you
Hmm.
go, "Yeah, that's right, a tree." So you both see that similarly.
Yes.
But when it comes to behavior, she sees behavior through a distortion field of her narcissism, which causes her to interpret everything through the lens of control and the receipt of fuel. So what happens is when she's having that conversation, her narcissism, if you imagine it's an imp on her shoulder, it's whispering, "You need to get control, keep control, keep control, keep control." And one way of doing that is to say something that is provocative, to
Hmm.
revise history, to talk about something that might happen in the future but never will. So her narcissism, in order to keep control over the person that she was talking to when she was talking about when they got married, basically selected a revision of history. Imagine there's this keyboard in front of you with all these
Uh-huh.
different manipulations on it. And at the top of this keyboard, there's a screen saying, "Keep control." And it keeps flashing, "Keep control." Sometimes it says, "Get control." Sometimes it says, "Nullify control."
Hmm.
And the narcissism operates this keyboard. And what it does is it selects a manipulation. So she's having this conversation with whoever it is interviewing her about the wedding or whatever. And that screen showing, "Keep control, keep control." So her narcissism selects revise history. So she then says, "Oh, we were actually married 3 days before." In that moment, even though the evidence is that wasn't when they got married, she believes it in that moment. And it's not so much about telling the lie, it's about what does it achieve. It enables her to provoke a response which draws fuel and allows her to maintain control. So
Oh.
sometimes the response of the narcissist is utterly incongruous with what's going on. And
Hmm.
people go, "Why on earth did they say that? That just doesn't even make sense." Sometimes it's a lot more plausible, but that's what's behind it. So when she tells these lies, for instance, saying that, Archie almost burned to death
Yes.
in that South African heater fire,
Uh-huh.
again, that's done because her narcissism is basically saying, "Quick, think of something that's dramatic so that everybody will react to what you've got to say and they go, 'Oh, that's awful,' because that will show that they're under control." So basically, her narcissism goes, "Oh, yeah, there was this huge fire. Archie almost got burnt to a crisp." Or, "Yeah, there was this guy who was at the Lion King premiere and he told me that everybody in South Africa celebrated when I got married in the same way as if they did when Nelson Mandela was released." She comes out with these porky pies, not because she
Uh-huh.
sits there and thinks, "What can I say that's a load of crap, but at least people will react to?" She honestly believes it because her
Hmm.
narcissism just selects that. So it's a little bit like, imagine, Jen, a film where there's a lady at home and the intruder bursts in and she falls backwards and she's scrambling to get away and
Uh-huh.
she's trying to find anything to stop this beast of a man or this monster advancing on her. She picks up a pot and throws it at his head. She picks up a poker and hurls it, and then her hands find a revolver, so she shoots him. The narcissism is the same. It scrambles for whatever it can find to make sure that it gets that control and that fuel. So with her, because she's not that an evolved narcissist, and it also provides the likes of you and me and countless others great opportunity to ridicule her whilst pointing out what it is by saying, look at this nonsense that she's coming out with. So that's why she does it.
Thank you for explaining that so clearly to me. It's just, see, again, you're fueling my fascination. I think this is so interesting. So could you tell me, why does Harry not say, what are you talking about? Do you believe it's the narcissist's control over him?
Two factors with Harry. The first is that he is somewhat cerebrally challenged, and therefore it's quite easy to pull the wool over his eyes. So with some things, it doesn't even cause him to question it. He's also been indoctrinated. So he's been fed this steady drip by her of, this is the way the world is, Harry. And it's basically, yes, mistress. No, mistress. 3 bags full, mistress. So he accepts all of that. And there are times where he knows she's talking shit. And there are times where he knows she's out of line. You saw his reaction when she did that disgusting curtsy on their program. He wasn't impressed by that. And there are times where and the occasion when she was on the balcony and he kept telling her to turn around and she wouldn't again. So, but the factor is that with certain things, he doesn't say anything because he knows out comes the taser and she applies it to the old pink pods. Many people who are victims of narcissists will tell you, I could see that they were behaving really badly, but it just wasn't worth pointing it out to them because then they would turn on me. And if they were causing a problem elsewhere and leaving me alone, all I wanted was a quiet life. At first, they might point it out. And of course, the narcissist, because that's a threat to the narcissist's control, the narcissist will turn on their spouse and say, who do you think you are? How dare you criticize me like that? And we'll give them a hard time. And that unaware victim that doesn't realize they're with a narcissist ultimately thinks, for the sake of maintaining the peace, I won't point it out. They can see it, but they won't do anything about it.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I don't mean to take over your interview, but I have to ask that I've always thought very similar, it sounds, of Harry, where he's more angry and dim. But then this Pat, and I don't know when this interview is going up, but in real time, we're going through this Pat Tillman situation, this Pat Tillman award. And to me, it's actually making me, and I might have this wrong, but I'm thinking that I'm seeing Harry's narcissism on display here. Do you feel like? Oh, go ahead.
Harry's not a narcissist, although he has narcissistic traits like everybody does.
Sure.
So, whilst you're clearly a kind person, you have narcissistic traits.
Sure.
As well.
I'm on a microphone, aren't I? Yeah.
But there we are. So you have a degree of vanity that you deem it appropriate that what you have to say has some relevance to the world around you. And of course, the views that you get validates that. But the point is that somebody that has a channel, there's a degree of vanity involved.
Sure.
Doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. Your vanity is kept in check by your empathic traits. With Harry, this whole thing with Pat Tillman, we've got to appreciate that he has vanity and pride. And also, he is thrashing around in the quagmire of irrelevance. What does Harry stand for? He's a prince. Oh, but he doesn't really do princely things anymore.
Correct.
Because he's outside of the royal family. Is he the CEO of a Silicon Valley company? No, he's not. Is he the CEO of a charity? No, he's a patron of certain charities. But even then, he doesn't really get involved in the way that he did when he was a working member of the royal family. Is he a sporting hero? No, he's not. Is he a brilliant podcaster or broadcaster? No, he's not. So he's struggling to find something to do. And so part of that is, right, I'll become a collector of awards because that gives me a degree of relevance. And of course, the suggestion it might help him with his visa application as well. So when an award comes along, he wants that award. His narcissistic trait of vanity and pride light up, causing him to want to get it. And then he gets all of this backlash. And he really ought to wake up at this juncture because the criticism that he's getting appertains to his his baby, if you will, the Invictus Games. Now, whilst it was developed for him to give him something to do, and the idea was taken from the Warrior Games, it's still his baby and something that's meant a lot to him. And he ought to be realizing, hang on a second, I'm getting a lot of heat here in relation to something that's really important to me. I'm tarnishing that with my behavior. And the fact is, the goodness that surrounds Invictus Games isn't enough to get through all of this controversy. And he ought to wake up and smell the coffee in relation to this. Whether he will remains to be seen. He may not. And he is, of course, influenced by the manipulations that he's subjected to. And he's bought into the awful shared fantasies, I call it.
Okay.
He's bought into that. And there is an element, because he's a stubborn so-and-so as well, that having bought into it, he rather than go, hang on a second, this is wrong, I'm hitting reverse, he keeps going, making it worse.
Mm-hmm.
What do you dislike about Harry?
Oh, again, how long do you have here? I just find him and his constant resentment insufferable. I unfortunately read Spare. I recapped the entire book on the channel, and it was hard. It was that was a tough read.
I gave up. I became bored.
Yeah, it was so hard for me to stick with it, but I did. And my husband, he doesn't care about this stuff generally, but I have brought him in on this, and he read part of it, and we could not stop laughing. And he said, basically, wow, his wife must hate him because she let him write these things. I'm like, no, you don't understand. She wrote these, in my opinion. She wrote a majority of this. So this is her. Yeah. And so, but I just find his constant resentment, his ongoing grievances, his entitlement, he acts like he's an expert on things, and yet he's completely hypocritical. I just recorded, I was just talking to the Sidley twins about Travelist and pushing this, green travel while traveling on private planes. It's just, I could go on. It's just things like that that just constantly irk at me. To your point, he just hasn't received the wealth and praise, in my opinion, that he has anticipated. And it seems for him to fuel an anger. And so I just think it's important to discuss. And then with this Pat Tillman Award, I just, the thing that I'm currently completely fixated on, and I've just been trying to articulate, and it hit me this morning, is he can't, he accused John Travolta of dining out on Diana's memory. And we know that's what he does.
Exactly.
Completely. And yet, okay, you have the mother of Pat Tillman speaking up saying, no, this isn't right. He doesn't need this award. And of course, he will completely ignore it. Yeah. So it's just that's what made me start thinking again. This morning, I was thinking, is he a narcissist? But I think you make excellent points, and perhaps I just suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that he needs or craves Megan's I don't know what the word is, attention, admiration. I doubt she regularly heaps it upon him, but when he does what she wants, maybe she does. So maybe he's fueled by that. This one I can't figure out. I really can't.
Well, he's been isolated. He's never met his father-in-law. He doesn't have anything to do really with his father anymore, certainly not his brother or his sister-in-law. His mates have deserted him because they think you've turned into, Harry the hippie. We were not impressed by your behavior nor that of your wife. And this is a typical narcissistic maneuver, so that he becomes entirely reliant upon this one's wife. So he's put all of his eggs in one basket. And because he's a clown, he's not capable. He's not capable of going, do you know what? He's not capable of getting on the phone and going, oh, Pa, realise fucked up, want to come home, can I? His stubbornness and his pride won't let him. And so he's stuck. So he's trying to make a decent fist of it with her. But he is miserable. And then that fosters his narcissistic trait of resentment. And of course, he can't really lash out at her. They will have arguments, but he can't keep lashing out at her because she's designed to deal with the conflict. He isn't. And basically, he was drawn to her by virtue of what she portrayed to him, which was an illusion, which cater to his vulnerabilities, cater to the missing mother syndrome, in effect, the spicy poontang. And he thought, jackpot. I've got this absolute brilliant girlfriend here. Wills is going to be completely envious. And then it's turned into a nightmare for him. But he's so invested in it, and he's so indoctrinated by what she has said about those around him. He's in a cult of one, as I did a video some time ago about that. And that's often what happens when you're with a narcissist. Many narcissists are cult leaders, but even on a more informal level, you find yourself in a cult of one with them, whereby you believe all the propaganda that you've been fed. And even when you start to sort of wake up, where'd you go with it? You've got nobody to turn to. And rather than admit he's wrong, he's clinging on.
Wow. Yeah. That is well said. I think you're spot on.
Sure. Now, we get lots of coverage of this one's wife, whether we like it or not. And of course, we contribute to that coverage in our own different ways. What do you enjoy most about the coverage that you see of this one's wife? What is it that perhaps, gets the old juices going when you witness the coverage?
I think the hypocrisy completely fascinates me. And the hypocrisy and lies, I think they go hand in hand. I'm completely fascinated. How do you call a family, racist, but you're clinging on to the titles that you can only get from that family? I mean, I get completely fascinated by things like that. Yeah. And the blatant lies, I think, fascinate me as well.
And conversely, what annoys you about the extent of the coverage that she gets?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I find myself annoyed with the mainstream media. I think people don't want to talking about just, again, mainstream media doesn't seem to want to dive into things like, why did she say she got married 3 days earlier? Why are these easily provable things she's lying about? Telling people that like a specific, or she didn't name a specific reporter, but a vague reporter in the UK called her child a horrible slur. And then not nobody, but most just take her at her word. And I find that with a little bit, I can do it. I can do a little diving and find reasons why it doesn't make sense and why that doesn't appear to be the case. Why can't the mainstream media do that? Why do they print so many puff pieces on her? I assume it has to do with, a payoff or the clicks.
Evidently, there are those that are in hock. They pay for the favourable coverage. I mean, you sometimes see this with the Daily Mirror in the United Kingdom. It often pumps out pro-Sussex things, and then it highlights that she's not doing things particularly well. So it changes its position whichever way the financial wind is blowing, I think.
Yes.
And then in other instances, there are certain journalists that they use her for their own agenda. Therefore, so they'll either be for or against her, and where you're talking. I mean, I think it comes back down to, why isn't mainstream media asking the difficult questions of her or posing those particular questions? And I think some of it is, obviously, there are those that are favourable to her. And then with others, I think there's a hesitancy with regard to potential litigation, because they're a pair of litigious individuals. And there may well be, of course, in certain topics, there's the suspected presence of a super injunction, which would stop it. But I think also with the media, there is an element of biding their time, that they like to sort of do the death by 1,000 cuts with her, because if they press the button and nuked her, effectively it's over. So why slaughter the golden goose just yet? Because so many people remain interested in her. Just give it a prod, criticize her here, question this here, point out some hypocrisies there. It gets the clicks, it drives the advertising. So editors, I'm fairly certain, have plenty of material that would finish her, but they basically don't pull the plug on it yet because it's too lucrative. And I think that's a lot that's behind it.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Very good point.
Yeah. Now, what's your favorite nickname for this one's wife?
Oh my gosh. So forever ago on my channel, Oh boy. All right. So I'm in the southern United States. You can hear it in my accent sometimes when I talk. We have a
Hmm.
certain way of saying things. And so one day, I wish I could credit someday I was just talking and somebody started calling him Hank. And then I don't remember if I came up with it. I wish I could take credit. I think it was somebody in my comments. We just started calling him Hank and Skank.
Yeah,
And,
works
and
well.
that, I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I just crack up thinking about that Hank and Skank. So I think that's pretty great. Again, in the southern United States, that is very much. I mean, you would call somebody Hank, like, "How you doing?" "How you doing, Hank?"
Yeah,
Hank and Skank. So it just fits and it
yeah.
just works for them. And I know that they would hate it. So
Even
really,
more satisfying, I should imagine.
that's
Now,
right.
Jen, have you got a strong stomach?
I do. Hit me. What
Good.
you got?
That's good news. Okay. I want you now to picture the bedtime routine of Harry and this one's wife in Monty
Oh
Shit
my
Show.
goodness.
Yep, the sun has gone down. The the insects are buzzing outside. The crickets are chirping. What do you think the bedtime routine of Harry and this one's wife looks like? Enlighten me with your crystal ball.
Oh my goodness. So that is a great question. I think nowadays it looks very different than it did.
Mm,
If if we're going there, I'll say I very much enjoyed Lady C's book. She points out that early on in the relationship, he was known as by I believe it was the courtiers, they called him Blowjobs Harry because they could
okay.
always tell when things were going well between them. So and he was led around by that. So that
Uh-huh.
strikes me very funny. But I would imagine that those days are long gone. We heard the rumblings that he has potentially some sort of membership or apartment or something like that. And I would suspect that they are in separate beds and potentially separate houses at this point.
Okay, so the scenario is that Hank is somewhere
Mhm.
down the road, perhaps, munching on a falafel as he's
Yeah.
playing Call of Duty in his
Yeah.
hotel room. So we can
Uh-huh.
picture that. What about her ladyship? She's
Uh,
she's at the Monty Shit Show mansion. Let's assume she is
Uh-huh.
living there. She's
Yes.
on her own. What's happening in that bedroom as dusk falls?
Oh, FaceTiming with Marcus maybe to
Yes,
figure out her
yes.
next plan of attack.
Or
Uh,
possibly engaging in a bit of rubbing the nubbin with Marcus.
yes,
That could be going on, couldn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, she used to be in a three-way call between Marcus and, as I call him, Plastic Man, Omid. But I'm thinking that those calls have ended, so now it's
Yeah,
just Marcus.
that's like some really warped porn film, isn't it? Just a three-way with those three
Yeah.
individuals going on. But yeah, Omid's been shelved, hasn't he? I
Yeah,
mean,
I think so. And I wonder if similar for Boozy. I can't that I can't quite figure out, but I wonder.
yeah,
Um, if she's
I mean,
just a
Boozy,
oh,
absolute clown.
bozo. Yeah,
Yeah, he
exactly.
certainly is. There's a lot one could say about that.
Yes.
What do you think when everything's said and done and she's about to shuffle off this mortal coil?
Mhm.
What do you think this one's wife's final last words will be?
I'm a victim. That's something
Yeah,
like that. Look at me. That's what I always say
yeah.
I think that plays in her head when she's walking anywhere.
You're
And so
probably
I would,
right. It would probably be something like, "Look how well I'm dying.
yes,
Nobody dies like
nobody's,
I do."
yes. Oh my God, I was just saying the same thing. Yes, nobody
Yeah,
dies
there we
quite
are.
like
Nobody
me.
dies like I do. She'll probably have that on her headstone, won't she? Nobody dies like I do, or nobody died like I did.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Now, if Harry was to be banned from the local library,
Uh-huh.
what do you
Do
think
you
the
think
reason would
Harry's going in a local library?
be? Well, let's just
Do they have
assume.
coloring books there? Yeah.
Well, that's right. It might just be for the colouring books. It might be that he has access to the internet there because he's banned from it at home. So he might get on there and watch a few of our videos and get some enlightenment. But let's assume that Harry somehow wandered into the local library, but he gets banned. What do you think he'd be banned for?
Oh, Googling pictures of Meghan Markle? I'm not sure.
I, I think, yeah, it might
Uh-huh.
be sort of trying to look up nudie pictures of Catherine.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Even
I
better.
think,
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
think that would see him getting turfed out, the naughty boy. Now, when this one's wife's in the shower, what's the first thing she washes?
Oh, can I make a guess as to what she's not washing? Yeah.
If you want to.
Oh man. Whew. Sorry. Speaking of strong stomach, I need to take some medicine. Can I say I don't I'm saying she skips the shower because she already thinks she's perfect. So why would she need to shower?
Okay, I will accept that answer. What do you
I've
think?
heard rumblings of smell. So
Yeah,
if that's the case, then oh goodness gracious.
yeah, that might be the case that there is no shower time.
Yeah.
Do you think that Harry and this one's wife have an overarching agenda?
I think that she does. I think
Okay.
he's along for the ride,
Yep.
and I think, I mean, total domination. Whether that be if she is planning to go into politics, which I still question because, and honestly, I don't have a complete understanding of that. If she would have to give up the title to enter politics, I figure she'll just find a way to make both happen. And it's not that I think she would succeed, but I think she believes she could, so she would do it, perhaps.
Politics is an interesting one, Jen.
Yeah,
Um, she hasn't got the merit, she's not got the sharpness of mind. And although there are lots of narcissists in politics,
sure.
her brand of narcissism isn't necessarily one that's particularly suited to survival in that environment. But that's not to say that she wouldn't try. I think what she'd go down the route of trying to do is, of course, there are those in politics who would just basically have it conferred they're in an anointed position. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what she would angle at, that she'd almost try. And I think that's what she was trying to achieve with the Obamas. But naturally, they saw straight through her and thought, "Who the hell's this loser?
That's right.
We're not involving ourselves with her." She would. It's interesting because on the one hand, her narcissism would be attracted to politics because, as I've made very clear in many of my videos, politics is an absolute honeypot for narcissists because political power, governmental power, military power allows the narcissist to pursue the prime aims extremely effectively. You can control people with it. You get lots of fuel by way of people's responses. You meet lots of people so you can acquire character traits, and there's loads of residual benefits. So it really, really stands out for narcissists. But because there's lots of narcissists in there, you generally have to be an effective narcissist to get anywhere. And she's not a particularly effective narcissist in dealing with lots of threats to control. This is why she makes all of these cock-ups.
Uh-huh.
And she'd be eviscerated because certainly in the United States, the gloves would come off with regard to digging into her past if she went into politics. And whilst there's some stuff there which I think is just rumor and nonsense, I also do think, and because she's a narcissist, narcissists do have skeletons in the cupboard, there'll be plenty of things that are unearthed, and she wouldn't be able to cope with it because she hasn't got the mental agility to argue it. She'd basically burst into tears, throw herself on the floor, or storm off.
We've seen that quite a bit.
Absolutely. So I think politics is one of those cards that she thinks she may have to play because she's failing at everything else.
Uh-huh.
So she might give it a go, but I don't think she'd get very far at all. And, there are many people that sort of say, oh, well, if you're a Democrat, you're a supporter of her. That's not the case. There's lots of Democrats that think she's an idiot.
Sure.
There's lots of Democrats that see straight through her. And I don't think that they would necessarily regard her as a particularly useful person. So, but we shall see.
Yeah.
How long do you think you'll carry on making videos about the two of them?
I will continue to talk about this as long as people will listen to me about this. I just feel this strong calling to do this. I feel like I'm almost standing up for Her Majesty the late Queen. I can't explain it. I just feel this drive to do this. So as long as people listen. Uh-huh.
So you feel almost a sense of obligation towards the late Queen Elizabeth II.
I do.
Hope to sort of take these two to task.
I do. I feel just completely disgusted by the way that they treated her, and I just feel this strong sense of, well, I do have a microphone and some people listen to me, so I need to talk about this. So yeah, as long as people listen, I'll keep talking about it.
That tends to be my greatest reservation with regard to Harry's behavior,
Hmm.
That whilst I recognise that he's been ensnared by a narcissist, and of course he's made his own choices, he's not an automaton, but ultimately he did have a good relationship with his grandmother. You could see that. You remember when they did the mic drop spoof
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, and the way that he treated her and allowed himself to behave that way, because he wouldn't have done that were it not for his wife, because he wasn't like that before. So we've all seen that she is the corrupting, polluting influence upon him. But the fact that he couldn't show enough backbone to say, you're not doing that, that's an insult to my grandmother, and that he basically swallowed the medicine that she was spooning him, to my mind, that's disgusting on his behalf.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Good. Well, we're in agreement on that.
Yes.
Now, always the case, the very important part of the conversation with the ultra is a game of this or that.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to pose you with a number of choices. Don't think about it for too long. You tell me which one you prefer. You ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay, Jenny, away we go. Fruit or veg?
Veg.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Text or call?
Text.
Laptop or tablet?
Laptop.
Driver or passenger?
Passenger.
Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
I always enjoy the way Americans say that.
Oh.
Pasta. Okay, soft or hard?
Ooh, hard.
Okay. House or apartment?
House.
Unicorn or dragon?
Unicorn.
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Bond or Born?
Ooh. Oh, God, I love them both. Bond.
Okay.
Daniel
Harry Potter?
Craig Bond. How about that?
Daniel Craig Bond, indeed. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Neither. Harry Potter, I guess.
Okay. Roses or lilies?
Oh, neither.
Got to choose
Peonies. Okay.
Nope.
Lilies.
Okay. Christian Bale or Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman.
Meryl Streep or Jodie Foster?
Neither. I think Meryl Streep's a narcissist too. I know. She stands alone. All right, Jodie Foster.
Okay. Titanic or Ghost?
Titanic.
Top Gun or Fast and Furious?
Ooh, Top Gun.
Yellow or orange?
Neither. Yellow.
Tall or short?
Tall.
Spring or fall?
Fall.
Gold or diamond?
Ooh, gold.
Mountain or beach?
Mountain.
Wasps or bees?
Bees.
Sparkling or still?
Still.
Frasier or Seinfeld?
Seinfeld.
Homer or Bart?
Oh, I don't watch it. Homer.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
The book or the film adaptation?
The book.
William or Loose Cannon Louis?
William.
Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh or Princess Anne?
Oh, that's Sophie's choice, Anne. Princess Anne. I love them both, but Princess Anne.
Okay. Harry or This One's Wife?
As to which I like or don't like. Oh, gosh. All right, I'll go with This One's Wife. She's at least more interesting to talk about.
Okay. This One's Wife or Prince Andrew?
Oh, God. This One's Wife.
Okay. Finally, spending the day with This One's Wife, being subjected to her beige word salad, or agreeing to make no more videos about This One's Wife?
Oh, I'd spend the day with her and I would report back to you all and let you know how it went.
Very good.
I love those questions.
Good.
I'm afraid you're going to diagnose me as a narcissist now.
Oh, no, not at all. It's quite clear. It's quite clear that you're not. Don't worry about that. Well, Jen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a conversation with you. We must do it again. I look forward to doing that in the future. So it only remains for me to thank you for giving your time today and answering the questions in such an interesting way. And as I say, I look forward to doing so once again in the future.
I appreciate you having me so much, and I'm going to take this moment and tell you I genuinely admire your dedication to your work, and I appreciate you having me on and taking the time, and I very much look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those kind comments. Thank you, Jen.